Hello and welcome to a revision session. Today we're going to be having a look at whether the Weimar Republic ever really accepted the terms of the Treaty of Versailles, in particular by 1928, so under the age of Stresemann. The easy answer to this question is no. The Weimar Republic may well have gone along with some of the terms of the Treaty of Versailles. For example, they did pay reparations, but they never fully accepted the terms of the treaty. They always fought them. And what we'll be talking about and revising today is something called the policy of fulfilment, an idea that Stresemann had. So Stresemann said to ensure that the reparations were lessened and that eventually the Treaty of Versailles was destroyed and got rid of, whether that was gradually or all in one go, he acknowledged that the Weimar Republic or Germany would need to be trusted again by the countries who'd imposed this very harsh treaty on them. And so he said they needed to follow this policy of fulfilment. They needed to outwardly be seen to fulfill the terms of the peace, the Treaty of Versailles, so lessening the size of their army, paying the reparations, not uniting with Austria. They needed to be seen to be fulfilling these terms, and in return, what he hoped for was that the other countries would trust the Weimar Republic or Germany, and therefore they would lessen the reparations, lessen the punishments, and perhaps completely take away the Treaty of Versailles. Probably the best piece of evidence that we have that the Weimar Republic didn't really accept the terms of the Treaty of Versailles is the extent of disarmament in Germany. So if we start by having a look at that. So we know, for example, that under the terms of the Treaty of Versailles, Germany or the Weimar Republic was only actually allowed to have 100,000 men in their army. Now, outwardly, following the policy of fulfilment, Stresemann suggests that Germany or the Weimar Republic appears to go along with that and accepts the term of that treaty. However, what they actually do is they have 100,000 men in their army. Here's my 100,000 men. Outwardly, they're complying. They don't have any more than that at any one time, but they have their 100,000 men in their army for a short, intense period of training, and then they switch them for a new section of 100,000 men, and then again for another section of 100,000 men, and so on. So they actually have a much larger army that's trained and ready to fight than they're letting on, but outwardly they seem to be complying. Similarly, or actually I think probably more extremely, they are certainly not complying or accepting the terms of the Treaty of Versailles whilst Stresemann's in charge. If we look at things like submarines and tanks. So under the terms of the Treaty of Versailles, submarines were completely banned, and Germany was only allowed to have 6 tanks. But in actual fact, Stresemann had made a secret agreement with Sweden that Germany would be allowed to build and develop submarines in Sweden. So secretly, submarines are being built. That is certainly not accepting the terms of the treaty. So it's only outwardly appearing that they are doing so, not actually doing so. And they were also developing tanks there as well. So in terms of disarmament, I'd say that's probably your best evidence that the Weimar Republic never fully accepted the terms of the Treaty of Versailles. Probably the next best piece of evidence we've got that the Weimar Republic didn't really accept the terms of the Treaty of Versailles is their relations with Russia, or the USSR as it was known, while Stresemann was in charge. So there are 2 main treaties that you should be aware of, the Treaty of Rapallo and the Treaty of Berlin, both named after the places where the agreements were signed. So again, with the relationship with the USSR, Stresemann and Germany were seen to be outwardly compliant with the treaty. On its surface, the peace treaties were exactly that. They were renegotiations of peace with Russia. This didn't break the terms of the treaty in any way. In fact, it seemed outwardly that Germany was accepting some of the eastern border changes which had been imposed on them during the Treaty of Versailles. So outwardly, they seem to be accepting the terms of the treaty. However, it's just the policy of fulfilment again. Weimar was actually using this relationship with the USSR to trade and improve weapons, something which they had been explicitly banned from doing under the terms of the Treaty of Versailles. And again, Although outwardly it seems like these are peace treaties with the USSR, the agreement really had been that the Weimar Republic or Germany would not be involved in any wars with the USSR. Brilliant. That's like a peace agreement. But in saying that, it's effectively building an alliance with the USSR, which could be seen as a threat by France, because effectively what they're doing is building up new international, very strong international allies. So actually, this isn't so much an acceptance of the terms of the Treaty of Versailles as it is a way of getting around these terms. So they're not directly breaking the terms of the Treaty of Versailles, but they're certainly not intending to stay peaceful as the agreement was meant to ensure. The next best evidence we've got that the Weimar Republic didn't really fully accept the terms of the Treaty of Versailles is probably the Locarno Pact and other agreements that go along with the Locarno Pact. So if we have a quick look at that. So the Locarno Pact was probably one of the best pieces of evidence we've got of the policy of fulfilment from Stresemann. It was an agreement between Germany, France and Belgium about their borders. Germany effectively is accepting the imposed borders that they have in the west of Germany, so on the left-hand side of Germany. Significantly though, they don't agree as part of the Locarno Pact or treaties that about the eastern borders that have been imposed on them though. So it's only the western borders that they signed to say that they agree that they're not going to dispute them any longer. It's quite a significant turning point in a way, because that leads on to Germany being accepted into the League of Nations. On the 8th of September 1926, the policy of fulfilment is being very successful here. By accepting these borders, they are being trusted enough to be allowed into the League of Nations. So Stresemann's quite successful here. That was actually something that was banned by the Treaty of Versailles. Germany had not been allowed to become a member of the League of Nations. So in a way, even though they're joining a peaceful organisation here, you could say it's further evidence that they're not really accepting the terms of the Treaty of Versailles. This was a way for them to get themselves into the League of Nations, something which they were not allowed to do as part of the Treaty of Versailles. By joining the League of Nations, they're being acknowledged as another strong power. They've got themselves some strong alliances. Okay, well, something else to consider if we're looking at whether the Weimar Republic accepted the Treaty of Versailles at any point is Allied occupation. So as part of the terms of the Treaty of Versailles, various areas of Germany were taken and ruled over by the League of Nations, and also we've got the areas such as the Rhineland and the Ruhr where they end up being Allied occupation, so French and Belgian troops occupying those areas. And again, I would say it's relatively easy to spot that a key aim of Stresemann was the end of Allied occupation, and given that that's his aim, he's certainly not accepting the terms of the Treaty of Versailles. His policy of fulfilment meant that Germany was more trusted, and the aim of that trust was ultimately that he would eventually get foreign forces to withdraw from the Ruhr and the Rhineland. And that happened, yes, as a result of outward compliance with some of the terms of the treaty, fulfilment of reparations, which was enabled because the Dawes Plan meant that they had sort of around 8 million extra to pay the reparations with. And that sort of seems like outward compliance. They are going along with, yes, they will pay reparations. But ultimately, they're only paying the reparations in order that they will get their foreign forces out of the Ruhr and the Rhineland, something which is going against the terms of the treaty. So I don't really think that things like the Dawes Plan and the paying of the reparations is a sign that they accepted the terms of the treaty. I think it's a sign of the policy of fulfilment being a success in that they were able to end the thing that they hated the most initially, which was that area of their own country was being occupied by other countries. So I think that the policy of fulfilment is just a disguise, if you like, for what they're really doing, which is secretly rearming themselves and finding ways to break terms of the treaty. So, did the Weimar Republic accept the terms of the Treaty of Versailles by 1928? The answer is no, they didn't. The policy of fulfilment made it look like they were outwardly complying, but they are clearly actually rearming and trying to gain stronger allies and ultimately end various parts of the policy of the Treaty of Versailles by being seen to be more trustable than they were before. Best of luck with your revision.